And next we have The Time Master Interworld Network Book Number 1, a LitRPG series written by Dmitry Bilik. I'm probably going to say that right. It is 436 pages. It is $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. An ordinary Russian guy, Sergei picks a fight in his neighborhood, defending a little boy. Problem is, the guy he's just defeated vanishes into thin air, leaving Sergei to discover he now possesses the ability to turn time around. On top of that, Sergei can now travel between worlds. He acquires even more mysterious new skills and abilities, and he discovers there are many others just like him in our world. Sergei finds his own place in the secret community of the Seekers, creatures with superpowers. He even teams up with a few of his new buddies, planning to strike gold in one of the neighboring worlds. Sergei has no idea that his every step is being watched. He's being shadowed by the Darkest One, one of the oldest Seekers around who will know no peace until he gets hold of some of Sergei's unique abilities through murder. There you go. That's it. Full disclosure, I received an advance copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. And again, having read some other stories this week, I can really appreciate the extra time and effort that the publishers of this novel go through to do like a really good translation of their works. Like it's much harder than it seems, apparently. On to the brief for the story. The cover art on this novel, I was kind of confused about what the cover art was doing with the story, because looking at the cover art as it is now, as it is per the review day of the story, it almost looks like it's a fantasy story, and that's not actually what the story is. It seems like it's almost epic fantasy quoting the cover art, but that's definitely not what the story is. And instead, while there are some epic moments in this novel, especially towards the end, this is actually a slice of life, real life LitRPG story. And you wouldn't have gotten that from the novel description, even sometimes from the description. It is Russian translation. There's a couple errors, but again, like I said, this is hands down much better than some of this other Russian stuff that I've read this week that isn't translated as well. And in this book in particular, I actually liked some of the Russian cultural flavor that I saw in the story. There were some nice annotations that gave explanations for some of the cultural references that I thought they added a little extra bit of flair and flavor that I liked. In the story, the main character becomes again a player or a seeker after he accidentally kills some guy he thinks is messing with his neighbor's kid, and becomes part of this RPG tracked world where he gets the magic ability to go back in time a few seconds. The power is used often. The author essentially writes a bad outcome for a situation. The main character rewinds like 3 seconds, and then we get the good outcome, or the outcome where he's changing the future essentially. And it's not an overpowered ability, which I really liked, because there are limited charges for the main character in this power, so it's not like an infinite amount of retries. It's not an infinite Groundhog Day essentially. But I think it's used well to essentially create some small points of tension that the main character can just immediately resolve with his power, but not so much that he can change huge events in history yet. It might be something in the future, but for now, it's essentially like, do over a couple times at most. The rest of the game mechanics in the story are familiar. You get stats, levels, skills, all the good stuff that you're going to be familiar with. The story itself is somewhere between kind of a normal urban fantasy story, where like you have a magic secret society and this like kind of subworld where people have abilities and they do quests and stuff, and something between level up, where the main character has these RPG powers, but he's also using them in his real life to do things in his real life situations that are a little more mundane and not necessarily fantastical. The main character does use his RPG powers, but a lot of the story is again just him doing the slice of life stuff where he's earning money, going on quest, learning about the new system he's a part of. There is this sub-story in there about fate, good and evil, which doesn't really amount to anything until like it's forced in towards the end of the novel. Which, by the way, this was it bugged me a little bit, so I know it's going to bug a lot of people. There's a huge cliffhanger on the story, and I'm not talking about like, this is just like a nice tease for the next novel. It's, oh my God, something happens, like, and then it just ends. And I'm like, wait, that's it? It's literally, it's a cliffhanger. And if that bothers you, just wait till book 2 comes out and then read book 1 and 2, because otherwise it's going to bug the heck out of you. And I know it definitely did me. I was like, wait, that's it? I'm like, okay. I mean, it doesn't ruin the story, but for me, it's like, even I'm like, okay, that a little annoying. I guess I'll have to read book 2 now. And maybe that's the point, obviously, but still. Overall, it's not a bad story. It's not as good as I was hoping for my real life RPG kind of story. I basically liked it a little less than Level Up, which is, it's kind of an comparison that they're both real life LitRPG stories. But I thought it had nice potential. Potentially, I'm definitely planning to read book 2 in the series. But again, I enjoyed it, just not as much as I was hoping I was going to with another real life RPG story. So for me, Time Master Interworld Network book number 1 gets a score of 7.2 out of 10. Still a good score, slightly on the lower end of good though. And again, that's Time Master with a score of 7.2 out of 10.